Caleb Dre's boots echoed across the empty corridor, the sound swallowed by the cavernous silence of the abandoned sector. Sparks flickered along the walls where broken circuits jutted out like jagged teeth. He was supposed to be cleaning, just sweeping up dust and debris before the next maintenance crew arrived, but something made him pause. A sound. A faint, desperate squeak that made his chest tighten. It wasn't mechanical and it wasn't human. It was small, terrified, alive. Caleb froze. His mop hovered midair. He scanned the shadows, heart hammering. There. Between a twisted steel support and a toppled crate, he saw it. A tiny creature no bigger than a cat huddled against the cold floor. Its skin shimmered like molten metal, scales glinting in the dim light. Eyes larger than his fist reflected raw fear, and when it looked at him the sound came again, a pleading, almost human wail. Caleb's throat went dry. He had dealt with rats, stray drones, even biohazard spills, but this was something else entirely. It was alive, fragile, and alone. Without thinking he crouched, holding out a hand. "Hey, it's okay," he whispered, his voice cracking with caution and awe. The hatchling flinched, pressing closer to the wall. Caleb's mind raced. Industrial sectors were off-limits, dangerous even for staff. Security drones patrolled intermittently. He couldn't risk leaving it here, but grabbing it could draw attention. He acted. Slowly, deliberately, he scooped the creature into his arms. It trembled violently, wings fluttering weakly, leaving streaks of iridescent dust on his uniform. Caleb's pulse spiked as a sudden electrical discharge sparked from a nearby panel, lighting the corridor in a harsh, white blaze. Sparks danced around him. A warning chime blared. Caleb's stomach sank. Security drones were detecting anomalies again, likely triggered by the hatchling's presence. He had seconds to decide, hide or run. Instinct pushed him forward. Using the crate as cover, he darted into a narrow maintenance passage. The hatchling's tiny claws clung to his sleeve, its eyes wide with panic. Caleb whispered calming words, though he barely understood the language it might be hearing. He could feel the creature's pulse against his chest, fast, erratic, fragile. The passage ended at a dead end. Caleb swore under his breath. He had to think fast. Then he noticed the emergency hatch overhead. Sliding it open, he hoisted himself up, the hatchling squirming in his grip. He dropped down into a service duct just as a drone spotlight cut across the corridor below. Sparks shot from a ruptured line near his shoulder, hissing and popping. Caleb yelped and ducked, pressing the hatchling against his chest. "Almost got you," he murmured. The tiny creature nuzzled his neck, soft warmth against his clammy uniform. For a heartbeat, he forgot the danger, forgetting the alarms and drones and the impossible odds stacked against him. The moment of connection hit him hard, a fragile life depending entirely on him. Then the hatchling did something unexpected. It hummed, a low, resonant vibration that made the metal walls tremble. Caleb froze, feeling a vibration against his own chest. The sound was beautiful and alien, but it carried weight. And it drew attention. Below them, a drone pivoted sharply, its sensors locking on. Caleb's stomach dropped. The hum seemed to flare in response, and sparks arced dangerously along the metal duct. He realized, with a jolt, that the creature was reacting to him, or to something nearby. He had no time to question it. He bolted down the duct, squeezing through the narrow space, his mind calculating every twist, every turn, every option. One wrong move and both of them could be trapped, or worse. The hatchling's wings beat weakly, but each flap was desperate, urgent. Caleb could feel the creature's fear, its need, its trust in him. A panel above gave way with a loud clang, raining fragments into the duct. Caleb shielded the hatchling with his body as metal shards skittered past. The resonance of its hum grew louder, vibrating through the walls. Caleb realized something terrifying. The hatchling wasn't just scared. It was sending a signal, some kind of energy alerting whoever, or whatever, was hunting it. His mind raced. What had he stumbled into? And why had this creature sought him out of all the humans on the station? One thing was certain. He couldn't put it down and he couldn't turn back. Not now. Ahead, a faint light marked an opening. Freedom, or a trap, he couldn't tell yet. Caleb tightened his grip, whispered, "Almost there, hang on." The hatchling's eyes glimmered, reflecting a mix of fear, hope, and something else, something almost human. And then, as they prepared to leap into the light, a sudden, deep rumble shook the station. The duct twisted, sparks flying, and the hatchling let out a sharp, piercing cry, not of fear but warning. Caleb's heart lurched. Something else was coming. Caleb's lungs burned as he crawled through the duct, the hatchling clutched tightly against his chest. Every inch of the narrow metal tunnel rattled under the station's shifting hum. Sparks still showered around them, the air thick with ozone. That rumble had come from somewhere deeper, a distant, mechanical growl that made his stomach twist. They were not alone. Ahead, the duct widened into a maintenance corridor. Caleb peered down the flickering lights and saw the faint glow of patrol drones scanning the halls below. Their sensors swept methodically, searching for anomalies. He knew those things could disable a human in seconds, and if they detected the hatchling, he didn't want to think about it. He tightened his grip on the creature. Its warmth pressed against his chest, wings fluttering weakly, claws digging into his uniform. Caleb whispered, "Stay quiet. Don't move." The hatchling trembled but seemed to understand, pressing closer. The first drone's light passed over the corridor entrance. Caleb held his breath, counting in his head. 1, 2, 3, and then he bolted. He dropped down from the duct and slid behind an overturned service cart. Sparks cracked across the ceiling and the drone pivoted, sensors glinting red. Caleb's mind raced. He couldn't fight them head-on. He needed clever. He scanned the corridor. A spill of coolant ran across the floor, a patch of moss-like insulation hung loose from the ceiling, and emergency doors lined the walls. Improvisation, that was his only weapon. He took a calculated step. One slip, one misjudged move, and the drone would detect him instantly. He kicked a small container of cleaning solvent across the floor. It spilled, forming a slippery puddle. The drone moved forward. Sparks flew as its foot mechanisms skidded across the slick metal. Caleb ducked low, dragging the hatchling behind a large service locker. The drone wobbled, sensors recalibrating, buying him precious seconds. Another rumble shook the corridor. Caleb's heart leapt. This wasn't just the drones, they weren't alone. Somewhere in the shadows, larger machinery, or something living, was moving. The hatchling stirred in his arms, emitting a low, resonant hum. Caleb realized the creature's hum affected the drones. Each vibration seemed to confuse their targeting systems. He leaned closer and whispered, "We'll get through this. I promise." They moved again, crawling through narrow passages, ducking under low ceilings, sliding past sparks and debris. Caleb's adrenaline surged with each calculated risk. At one junction, he slammed a maintenance hatch behind them, blocking a pursuing drone temporarily. Sparks showered from a ruptured conduit, sizzling the floor. The hatchling chirped, wings quivering with stress. Caleb rubbed its back soothingly. "Almost there, we just have to keep moving." The corridor led to a larger service bay. Pipes hung like jungle vines, crates stacked precariously. Caleb realized he could use the environment to his advantage. He set the hatchling down gently behind a crate, whispering instructions. "You stay. Don't move. I'll distract them." He darted into the open bay, dragging a stray cable across the floor. When the drone entered, Caleb tugged the cable free. Sparks arced and the machine's sensors glitched. It lurched violently, giving him time to scoop the hatchling back into his arms. A moment of triumph, a small payoff. Human ingenuity had kept them alive again. But the tension didn't ease. Caleb noticed faint, glowing patterns on the hatchling's scales. They pulsed with an eerie rhythm, reacting to the drone's presence. He had no idea what it meant, but instinct told him the hatchling was more than just a scared creature. It might be key to whatever was hunting it. As they raced toward the next maintenance hatch, a new obstacle appeared. The floor beneath a section of the bay groaned, metal beams buckling from age and neglect. Caleb's foot slipped, sending a crate toppling. The sound echoed like thunder. The hatchling squeaked in alarm and Caleb froze. Red sensor lights flashed. The drone had noticed. He acted without thinking. Using his momentum, he slammed the crate into the drone's path. Sparks flew, metal groaned, and the machine stumbled. Caleb didn't wait. He leapt over the debris, the hatchling secure against his chest, and dived through the maintenance hatch into a narrow vent. The drone tried to follow but misjudged the angle and skidded across the bay, crashing against a wall. Caleb barely had time to breathe. They crawled through the vent system, the hatchling nuzzling him. For a brief moment they were safe. Caleb whispered, "We're doing it, we're still here." The warmth of the small creature reminded him why he was risking everything. Its trust, its life, depended on him. But safety was fleeting. Through a gap in the vent, Caleb glimpsed something moving below, a larger silhouette than any drone gliding silently across the floor. He swallowed hard. The hatchling let out a sudden high-pitched trill, resonating through the metal walls. Caleb froze. Whatever was below had heard it. The vent shuddered under the station's vibration. Sparks arced from the wiring above. Caleb's pulse raced. He had no choice but to continue. Ahead, an emergency exit led to a maintenance service corridor, potentially offering temporary cover. But the rumble grew louder. The unknown presence was closer now, and whatever it was massive. Caleb gritted his teeth. He hugged the hatchling tighter, whispering, "We're not done yet." Not yet. The creature chirped again, its hum merging with the vibrations around them. He realized with a shock that it was responding to him, synchronizing somehow, guiding them. As they neared the vent exit, the hatchling shivered violently, letting out a sharp, urgent cry. Sparks erupted from a junction box nearby, throwing them both into momentary darkness. Caleb shielded the hatchling, heart pounding. When the light returned, the vent exit was clear, but the rumble below had intensified. Caleb's stomach dropped. Whatever was hunting them had followed. And now it wasn't just a drone. Something alive, something enormous, was moving in the corridors below, aware of their presence. He took a deep breath, the hatchling trembling in his arms. "We've got to keep moving," he whispered, voice steady despite the fear. "I won't let anything happen to you." The vent exit loomed ahead. One step, one leap, one chance to escape. Then a heavy, metallic thud echoed from below. Not from the drone. Something else. Something massive. Caleb's grip tightened. The hatchling stiffened, wings fluttering. Sparks danced across the corridor. And the unknown presence let out a low, resonant growl, a sound that made the station itself seem to tremble. Caleb swallowed hard, heart racing, mind sharp. There was no turning back. They had to move. The chase had just begun. Caleb's arms ached as he carried the hatchling through the twisting maintenance corridors. Each step echoed like a drumbeat, mixing with the creature's low hum that pulsed in response to the vibrations around them. The unknown presence below was no longer just a threat. It was hunting them, deliberate, intelligent, relentless. Ahead, a flicker of faint light caught Caleb's attention. He ducked into a narrow duct that led to a small alcove tucked behind a service panel. The hatchling huddled close, wings trembling. Caleb pressed a finger to its chest, feeling the faint thrum beneath the scales. There was more to this creature than he realized. It wasn't just scared, it was signaling. Something. Something he couldn't understand yet. He scanned the alcove. The walls were scratched with old markings, alien in shape but worn, almost forgotten. And there, embedded in the station's wall like a secret left behind, was a small crystalline device. Its surface shimmered with a rainbow of colors, refracting the faint light into patterns that seemed to pulse in sync with the hatchling's hum. Caleb's breath caught. "What are you?" he whispered. The hatchling chirped softly, leaning closer to the device. The crystal began to glow brighter, reacting to its touch. Caleb's instincts screamed caution, but curiosity burned stronger. He touched it gently with a fingertip. Immediately, a holographic projection burst into the alcove. Light flared, images of alien landscapes swirling before him, impossible architecture floating in gravity-defying loops. Symbols moved along the edges of the hologram, synchronized with the hatchling's glowing scales. Caleb stumbled back, shielding the creature, heart hammering. A voice came, not through speakers but in his mind, clear and urgent. "Emissary, protect, vital." The words repeated in a cadence that made the crystal pulse faster. Caleb realized, with a mix of awe and fear, that the hatchling wasn't just lost or scared. It was important, key to something bigger than he could imagine. Suddenly the rumble returned, louder now, closer. Caleb's eyes darted to the vent. Whatever was following them had tracked them here, and it wasn't going to wait. He had seconds to decide. He grabbed the hatchling, holding it close to his chest. "We can't stay. Come on." The creature chirped sharply, wings beating in a flurry. Caleb realized it was trying to warn him. Its hum had changed, more urgent, more precise. Following its guidance, he navigated a series of narrow maintenance shafts that twisted unpredictably, leading him toward a service elevator he had noticed earlier. The elevator was operational but unguarded. Caleb activated it, heart racing. Sparks sizzled along the metal tracks as the hatchling's hum intensified, vibrating against his chest in a way that sent shivers down his spine. As the elevator doors closed, Caleb stole a glance through the opening. Shadows moved below, larger than any drone. One massive form, taller than a maintenance gantry, glided across the corridor. Its shape was sleek, armored, predatory. Caleb swallowed hard. It had intelligence and it was hunting them specifically. The elevator jolted upward, groaning under the strain. Caleb hugged the hatchling tighter, whispering words of reassurance. The creature pressed against him, its warmth and trust a fragile anchor in the chaos. The holographic crystal's images had shown him enough. This was no ordinary alien, it was a rare emissary species, carrying signals vital to unknown forces. And now the hunters were closing in. When the elevator doors opened on the upper level, Caleb didn't wait. He ducked into a narrow service corridor that led to the old observatory deck, abandoned for decades. The hatchling chirped again, pulsing light across its scales. Caleb noticed the patterns forming letters, or at least a code. It wasn't just signaling for help, it was communicating. Something about the crystal had triggered it, revealing a hidden message embedded in the hatchling itself. Suddenly, a section of the observatory floor trembled. Caleb's eyes darted downward. The massive predator, whatever it was, had found a way onto the upper level. Its movements were fluid, deliberate, scanning for them. Sparks flew from a damaged console, lighting the shadowed deck in a strobe of white and blue. Caleb realized they were cornered. He forced himself to stay calm. Panic would get them killed. He scanned the deck for anything to use as leverage. Broken railings, maintenance crates, and old security turrets littered the room. One idea formed. If he could use the hatchling's resonance combined with the environment, maybe he could buy time. Carefully, Caleb set the hatchling down, instructing it softly. Use the hum. We'll need it now. The creature's scales glowed brighter, pulsing in rhythm with the remaining electrical systems around the deck. Caleb activated a loose turret console, sending sparks and pulses through the deck. The resonance amplified, sending a shockwave through the floor. The predator stumbled, its massive frame caught off guard by the sudden surge of energy. A small, hard-earned victory. The predator retreated momentarily, and Caleb scooped up the hatchling. They dashed toward a hidden ladder that led to a maintenance shaft he had noticed during previous sweeps. Every step mattered. Every sound could be the difference between escape and capture. As they climbed into the shaft, Caleb realized the hatchling's hum had another purpose. It wasn't just confusing the hunters, it was guiding him. The patterns in the scales, the reaction to the crystal, the precise vibrations, they were a map. The creature was showing him the safest path through the station, anticipating dangers he couldn't see. His heart pounded. He had no idea what lay ahead, but one thing was certain. The hatchling was more than just a scared alien. It was intelligent, resourceful, and somehow counting on him. And Caleb knew he would not let it down. Not now, not ever. As they disappeared into the maintenance shaft, the crystal's light flickered one last time, projecting a brief, sharp symbol before shutting off. Caleb didn't recognize it, but the feeling it left was unmistakable. They had just stepped into a larger mystery, one that would change everything. And somewhere, deep in the shadows of the station, the predator paused, sensing the connection, the bond, the hum, the trust. It let out a low, guttural growl, patient and unyielding. Caleb's mind raced. They had survived the chase, for now. But the real challenge was only beginning. Caleb's boots clanged against the metal walkway of the abandoned observatory deck. The hatchling nestled in his arms, its tiny body quivering but glowing faintly, illuminating the shadows around them. Every muscle in his body tensed as he scanned the corridor ahead. The predator below had not given up. Its heavy, resonant footsteps shook the deck, echoing like a heartbeat of danger. He had to act fast. The maintenance shafts behind them offered only temporary cover, and the station's security drones were converging, responding to the hatchling's resonance. Caleb's mind raced. One wrong move, and they would be trapped between mechanical precision and living fury. Ahead, an emergency exit led to the upper docking bay, a risky path, exposed but offering room to maneuver. Caleb weighed the choice. Safety or speed? He made a decision. Hold tight, he whispered. The hatchling chirped softly, wings fluttering in response as if it understood. They dashed forward, stepping over loose panels and debris. Sparks shot from exposed conduits, hissing like a swarm of angry fireflies. Caleb used every ounce of his janitor's resourcefulness. He kicked crates to create obstacles, yanked loose wires to trip drones, even triggered a failing rail system to slam a gate shut behind them. Each action bought them seconds, small victories that kept the predator at bay. A sudden metallic clang made Caleb freeze. The predator had found them, its massive form appearing at the far end of the bay. Its eyes, glowing faint red in the emergency lights, locked onto him and the hatchling. It moved with terrifying precision, cutting off their path to the docking bay. Caleb's stomach dropped. There was no way around it. He glanced at the hatchling. The tiny creature's hum intensified, vibrating against his chest. Its scales pulsed in rhythm with the electrical currents running through the station. Caleb realized this was no longer just a cry of fear, it was a weapon, a tool. He had to trust it even though he didn't fully understand how. Caleb took a deep breath. He sprinted toward a hanging maintenance crane, dragging the hatchling close. Sparks flew from overhead cables as the predator lunged, moving faster than any human could anticipate. Caleb swung the crane hook down, catching a loose panel. It crashed into the predator's path, forcing it to leap back. The hatchling let out a sharp, resonant trill. The vibration traveled through the metal floor, sending a shockwave that staggered the predator further. For a brief moment they had space. Caleb bolted toward the docking bay, the hatchling's hum guiding him toward the safest path. He could feel the creature's awareness, its intelligence, as if it were anticipating every trap and obstacle. A mixture of fear and awe surged through him. This fragile alien was not just alive, it was extraordinary. The docking bay stretched ahead, empty save for a few derelict cargo pods. Caleb didn't hesitate. He sprinted across the open floor, leaping over a panel that sparked violently beneath his feet. The predator roared, a low, guttural sound that reverberated through the bay. Its movements were fluid, relentless, and terrifyingly precise. Caleb's heart pounded, every step a test of human endurance and instinct. He spotted a maintenance ladder leading to an overhead catwalk. If he could reach it, they would have a vertical advantage and a potential escape route. But the predator was closing fast. Caleb grabbed the hatchling and made a running leap. Sparks erupted where his boots hit exposed circuits. He barely caught the ladder's rung, yanking himself and the hatchling up just as the predator struck the floor below. The metal shuddered under its weight, and a cloud of dust and debris rained down around them. Caleb pressed himself against the catwalk railing, breathing hard. The hatchling chirped, wings fluttering, scales pulsing brighter than ever. He realized the resonance had amplified. The vibrations now surged through the catwalk and the surrounding metal, creating a shockwave that pushed the predator back. Caleb's eyes widened. The creature's small body had become their shield, their weapon. The predator roared in frustration, circling the bay, waiting, calculating. Caleb gritted his teeth. He had one chance. He scanned the cargo pods below. One was old but functional, large enough to hold both him and the hatchling. If he could make it, they could use it as a temporary shield to escape the predator's line of sight. "Ready?" he whispered. The hatchling chirped sharply, almost in affirmation. Caleb adjusted his grip and leapt from the catwalk. Sparks and debris exploded where his feet hit, sending shivers through the metal floor. He hit the pod with a hard thud, rolling inside and curling protectively around the hatchling. The predator lunged but miscalculated. The pod rocked, tipping slightly, throwing it off balance. Caleb held his breath as the creature scrambled back, frustrated, unable to breach their temporary refuge. For the first time in minutes, a small smile broke across his face. They had survived. Human ingenuity, courage, and the unexpected abilities of the hatchling had bought them a victory. Caleb rubbed the creature gently, feeling the warmth of trust and connection. "We're still here," he whispered. "We made it, for now." But the moment of relief was fleeting. From the shadows of the docking bay, Caleb glimpsed more than the predator. Shapes moved, subtle but deliberate, others watching, waiting. The hatchling stiffened, emitting a low warning trill. Caleb's stomach sank. The predator had been a scout. Something larger, more organized, was tracking them. And the stakes were far higher than he had imagined. He looked at the hatchling, now quiet in his arms, its scales pulsing with residual resonance. He realized they were only the beginning of a larger conflict, one that he could barely comprehend. But one thing was certain. He would not let this tiny, extraordinary creature fall. Not now, not ever. The docking bay doors groaned as pressure shifted, faint lights flickering across the metal. Caleb took a deep breath, heart pounding, mind sharp. The next move would be critical. The predator was patient, intelligent, and waiting. And Caleb knew that their survival depended not just on courage, but on every ounce of resourcefulness he could muster. As the pod rocked lightly, Caleb whispered to the hatchling, "We're not done yet. There's more out there, and we'll face it together." The creature chirped softly, almost in agreement, its glow dimming and pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. From the shadows beyond the docking bay, unseen watchers stirred, their eyes glowing faint red. Caleb didn't know it yet, but the chase was far from over. The predator's roar had been just the first test. The real danger, the one that would test every skill, every decision, every bit of courage, was coming. Caleb leaned against the cold metal wall of the hidden research lab, the hatchling curled in his arms. The small creature's glowing scales pulsed gently now, calmer than they had in hours. Outside, the faint hum of the station systems was broken only by distant sparks and the occasional drone scan. For the first time, Caleb allowed himself to breathe. They had survived barely. The lab was dusty and abandoned, shelves lined with old alien artifacts and storage crates. Caleb set the hatchling on a low table. It hesitated, glancing at the glowing devices, wings fluttering nervously. Caleb smiled softly. "You're safe, for now," he said. Its large eyes fixed on him, a flicker of trust shimmering across its scales. That trust, fragile and precious, hit him harder than any danger they had faced. He knelt beside the hatchling, studying its tiny body. The faint scars on its wings told him it had been hunted before. And the glowing patterns on its scales, still faintly pulsing, whispered of mysteries he couldn't yet understand. But one thing was clear: it was extraordinary, a creature unlike any other he had seen. Caleb placed his hand lightly on the table near the crystal device he had found earlier. The holographic projections no longer worked, dormant for the moment, but the hatchling's presence seemed to keep some energy alive. Caleb realized the crystal and the creature were connected. Both vital, both part of something far larger than himself. He sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. The adrenaline still thrummed in his veins. The predator had retreated for now, but he knew better than to think the danger was over. Whoever, or whatever, was behind the attack on the hatchling would not stop. The hum of the creature's scales reminded him. They had survived against impossible odds, but the real challenge was just beginning. Caleb glanced around the lab, thinking fast. The facility was old, sealed off, but it contained tools, panels, and maintenance access that could be used to hide, defend, or even escape the station if needed. Every option counted. Every decision could save lives. That was what made a human different from a predator. They could think, adapt, and act with courage when everything seemed hopeless. He crouched again, brushing a faint layer of dust from the hatchling's scales. "You trusted me," he whispered. "I won't let anyone hurt you." The creature chirped softly, almost as if understanding. Caleb smiled, a small spark of hope lighting the exhaustion in his chest. This bond, this connection, was proof that humans could make a difference even when the odds were stacked impossibly high. Minutes passed in silence, broken only by the soft pulse of the hatchling's hum. Caleb's eyes wandered back to the dormant crystal. He realized the device was more than a relic. It was a message, a warning. And now, in combination with the hatchling, it was a key. Somehow he and the creature had been chosen, thrust into a role they hadn't asked for. And yet that didn't frighten him. It challenged him. It demanded that he rise to the occasion. The hatchling stirred again, wings stretching, scales flashing brighter. Caleb realized it was responding to something beyond the lab, a subtle change in the energy of the station. He frowned. Someone, or something, was still observing. The predator might have been only the first agent. Others could be coming. Caleb rose, gripping a maintenance pipe for balance. "Then we'll be ready," he said quietly. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." The hatchling chirped sharply, hopping onto his shoulder. Its warmth pressed against him, a reminder that even the smallest beings could inspire courage. He moved to the lab's viewport, staring out into the empty docking bay. Shadows flickered, faint but deliberate. Alien silhouettes, taller and more formidable than the last predator, drifted across the far corridor. Caleb's heart thumped, but he didn't panic. They had survived worse. They had won small victories through intelligence, quick thinking, and compassion. And he knew that humanity's resilience, the ability to act morally, cleverly, and bravely, was their greatest weapon. Caleb turned back to the hatchling. "We'll keep moving, keep learning," he said. "No one will take you from me." The creature chirped, its scales dimming slightly as if in agreement. Caleb felt a surge of determination. He wasn't just protecting a hatchling, he was protecting hope, a symbol of life, intelligence, and trust in a universe that often felt cold and indifferent. As he explored the lab, he noticed the crystal flicker faintly again. A new pattern appeared, quick, sharp, almost imperceptible. Caleb studied it, realizing that this was a message not fully understood yet. Someone had left it intentionally, perhaps knowing that the hatchling or someone protecting it would eventually find it. A low, distant hum resonated through the station, faint but undeniable. Caleb stiffened, feeling the weight of it against his chest. The hatchling's scales pulsed in sync. He didn't know what the hum meant, warning, threat, or invitation, but he knew one thing: the story wasn't over. Their survival had been just the first chapter. He lifted the hatchling to his shoulder again, feeling its tiny claws grip gently. "Rest for now," he whispered. "We've earned this moment." And yet, his eyes never left the shadows beyond the viewport. Somewhere out there, watchers waited, predators lingered, and mysteries waited to be uncovered. Caleb smiled faintly despite the tension. They had survived impossible odds, and he would continue to rise to every challenge. Human courage, intelligence, and heart had carried them through. And they would carry them further into the unknown. As the hatchling nuzzled his neck, Caleb whispered to himself, "Tomorrow, we find out what all this means. Tomorrow we take the next step." And from the darkness beyond the lab, a faint glimmer of light reflected across the walls. Signals from the larger mystery they had yet to face. Caleb didn't know it yet, but the galaxy was watching, and the next challenge would be greater than anything they had survived so far.